Colorado Ed News. And a lot of folks didn't even know that that was out there, that you could look to see how much each district in the Denver metro area would be getting, and they just didn't know where to go. And so to try to help with the funding crisis, I think a lot of the answers, and I would say this when I was a principal, the answers are in the room. The answers of how we need to solve this in our district, it's in our district. We just need to make sure that people understand exactly how it affects them, and we are smart enough people to come up with what the answers are. If that means we go out and have town hall meetings, that's fine. If that means that we show up at all the PTA, PTO meetings, that's what we do. But we need to get the information some way, in some way, form, or fashion from the folks who we represent.
I think in order to help our constituency understand the financial needs of the district, it's been mentioned here on this board, I think that continuing to get the word out to our community is the most important thing. Mr. Gill mentioned Amendment 66 is on the ballot this year. That is the best opportunity for our district immediately to have that pass. It also is adding to it that this is actually a state issue where the funding comes to the district and it's not totally local here is a positive to our district. So I mentioned before, kind of I jumped questions a little bit because two of the issues. Question number two, but just going back to address the funding issue, make sure our district is operating at the absolute efficient level. I think that's extremely important. Getting the message out to the population of our story and our funding is important also. A couple of things we could do: lobby legislature, take advantage of our associations to help get our story to the state and get them to overturn some of these recent cuts. And also inform the local constituency about the financial needs of the district. Going across that, gain positive response from them. Hopefully, if 66 does not go through, there's a good chance for a bill in the near future.
Is that all the answers?
I'm sorry, taking notes. Great. Okay, our fourth one. The board has established global goals for the district. What are your thoughts on these goals, and should any of them be changed? Should any be added? So, start with Cassandra.
So I'm probably always going to point and poke at achievement goals because, as I said, I strive to be the voice of the student. And the global ends, the graduation rate increased 2% until we reach the 95 percentile and not fall below it. I would propose that we maybe change the wording. I'm reminded of completing a school improvement plan when I was a principal in Texas, and a student read that we had a 95% goal, and he read it as if all I have to do is score 95%. Well, he was well above that, and he just shut down. It doesn't matter, I'm okay. And we really, really have to pay attention with how kids read these, because they are part of this and they should understand it. And so I read some of the bullet points and the mission and vision about all students, and I'll go back to the all means all. And so looking to reword those to make sure that anyone who reads it and any interpretation that folks walk away from, that we don't just say that we're going to reach a certain point and not go past it, that we continue to grow and show what that growth is. The other point or thing that I would point at is, again, that sense of urgency. That's something that I really push even my building principal on, of making sure tomorrow is too late, that our students deserve the very best every day in every classroom without an excuse. And so putting a date, when are we going to reach that? Is that in 2 years? Is that in 5 years? We look at where we are now and looking at that rate, 10 years, wow. You know, my third grader will have graduated. And in 10 years, these goals will not match what she will need to be successful when she graduates from high school. And so I would come and challenge those achievement goals to see if they really, really match where we want to be and what we want to offer our students.
I think this is a really good question. I know being on the board for 4 years, we went through and placed these as what we were aiming for to achieve. I was happy to see when we came up with these that we actually came up with some numbers to reach. Any thoughts that I have as far as changing them is maybe possibly breaking out a timetable for the achievement. Being on the board for a couple of years now with these goals in place, we've had some success in achieving them, and I think if we were maybe to break it down a little bit further in steps as far as achieving each one, that would be something that I would be thinking of as far as changing.
I did not have time to locate the specific global goals before I came. I have to work for a living, and I work in Northern Colorado for Sheriff Davis. But I do know the global end statement of 27J, which says 27J exists so that students have the knowledge and skills for present and future success, with results justifying expenditure of resources. I'm going to pick on the parents a little bit on that again. The way I see this condition existing is for parents to put parenting first and actively assist the kids in all aspects of their educational goals. Parents must actively contact teachers, administrators, board members, etc., in order to maintain well-disciplined drive and professionalism of their children first. And then the educators must realize that this is a team effort and do likewise. Specific goals, yeah, we have to outline those things.
As far as the goals, the ones we have finalized after a year-long process of community engagement, we had a group of the same community members meet several times over a year. And what it was about is to reflect the value of our community. And the goals focus was the business of the district, which is academic achievement, which we have a responsibility for, and expertise in. And as far as changes, perhaps in a year, once the state has finalized the graduation requirement, possibly the thought would be that the goals reflect those requirements. And as far as should anything added, with the growth that we've had, the challenges that we've had, those that could be added, we won't know until we cross that bridge, because we've had a lot of challenges. And just the short time I've been on the board, there's been goals that have been changed and added because of the challenges that the district has.
Okay, I read in your website, I believe it's your mission statement about why District 27J exists. I wholeheartedly agree that the reason public school exists, of course, is to educate the children, right? Otherwise, there wouldn't be any public schools. But I also believe that public schools can only control what is under their control. They cannot, unless we were a tyranny, we cannot tell the parents, you're going to have to come over to this meeting now. You know, so we have to deal with what we have, and what we have is just what we can do. I think the board can establish general goals, which is the ends that you're looking at, and let the school, the people that is doing it, actually come up with how they're going to accomplish it. I believe more in concentrating in what do we need to do in the learning process that is going to eventually give the fruits of good test scores and good knowledge for the kids. But if we concentrate too much on like, okay, we want to get this score and this and that, and we're going to accomplish it in 3 months and all that, you know, concentrate more in just the general part. This is what we would like to see, and then have the people that is doing the work come up and with the solutions of the tool. This is how we can solve the problem.
You know, the district's put forth 4 goals. And I have to admit, I appreciate the district doing that. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you're willing to accept criticism for what you've done. But I'll be honest with you. The goals in the present form would be goals that I would reject. I would not accept them and I would vote against them. And it's not because they're not good goals. It's because the goals don't really provide what's needed, I don't think, for the school district. So for instance, the first one is the graduation and completion rate will increase by 2% per year until 95% is attained, at which it will not drop lower. The fact is that that's quantity versus quality. We need to get to a point where we have the quality education for these kids. I mean, kids who graduate today that can't even read. And we have to make sure that it's not a matter of getting kids through the school system, which is what I think has happened a long time. We need to make sure there's quality. And what 2% are we talking about? We have an achievement gap where our minority students are not doing well, and we know that in high school. And so we're going to graduate, are we going to be satisfied with a 2% graduation rate for white students over the minority students? I mean, it has to be more specific in what we're talking about here. You know, just for my own personal job, the incarceration rate in the state of Colorado is the most of any state in the nation. We incarcerate more people in this state per capita than any state in the nation. And what they all have in common is lack of education. So it's not a matter of just getting people through the system, it's a matter of getting the quality that we need through the system. So I think that's why I would be concerned with number 1. Number 2, again, we come back to the district's average composite AT study score will increase by half a point per year until the school reaches 22, at which it will not drop lower. Well, if we were to incorporate that, and if we're at 18 now, that means we've got to go up 4 points, and a half point per year, we ain't going to get that goal achieved for 8 years. That's way too long. We have that's two high school graduations of freshmen before we can actually say, and who knows if the ACT rate goes up higher than that after that point. You know, right now there's only 3 schools that kids can get into if they graduate in the state of Colorado. Fort Lewis Metro is one, I can't remember what the third one is, with a ACT score of 18. You know, Dr. Carr a few minutes ago, and she kind of brought this to my mind. She very eloquently stated, you know, what happens to kids after high school? The fact is for 18 to 24-year-olds, 9% of whites have a high school GED. 96% of Asians have the same. 81% of African Americans do, and 63% of Latinos do. So how are we going to get the ACT rate up where kids can have the opportunity to enter any school that they want to go to? Number 3, I'm not going to read because that's taking my time. Number 3, in the 3.1, the superintendent shall not fail to recognize the importance of the core area classes when deciding the allocation of resources, including funding time, staff materials. These allocations will take precedence over secondary offerings. The fact is, that's not really a goal. The Board of Education needs to direct the superintendent and not set a goal for the superintendent to make sure this happens. The board has to say, this is what needs to happen, people. That's what the Board of Education does. Do I have any more time?
Tomorrow night? Yes, we're doing tomorrow night. What I'd like to do is offer the candidates in the uncontested race opportunity to respond to any of those issues if you so choose. You don't have to, but if you'd like to. Raise your hand or...
In regards to funding, I moved to the area 2 years ago, and I expressed interest in joining the board 2 years ago. I actually started speaking with Joan when I first moved here. I was told there would be no chance of me taking her seat because she was pretty powerful here by then, and I had a chance, plus I had to be here at least a year as a resident. But when I started talking to residents, they kept telling me why they were voting down bonds and mills. It's because when they were given the information of why we needed the funding, what we were going to do with it, we didn't follow through. To educate them all we want of what we want the money for, we never followed through. They heard one thing and saw another. And that's doors I knocked, friends I made, we just had conversations over. We have to stick to what we're going to say as a bond. We have to stay unified in that regard. And I feel if we can get a good board here, I think we can do that.
I think it's been discussed and being pretty good. Funding is one of those issues, especially a state election, where it's out of the school board's hands. It's out of the school's hands. You can make a case, you can advertise, you can educate, but the reality is people are going to vote with their conscience, what they see. There's no question we need more money in the schools. But we need to explain what we're going to do with it. I think the American public is tired of saying, yes, you've come to the till one time too many, and now I'm going to say no. We have to prove that we're making a difference. The schools have to prove they're making a difference. I think we've heard several people talk about the problems that we have with students who graduate with high school diplomas that can't read. I also employ about 400 people. Some of the people we're getting out of universities, I'm not sure how they got out of the universities, because what we're getting in the from people with master's degrees are people that can't even work in the community. And we're missing. It starts obviously early with pre-K and the way we educate. We have to change. Somebody mentioned the system is broken. It is. And somebody also mentioned money doesn't solve all problems. It doesn't. We have to, if we're going to have a plan, if we're going to ask people to fund the schools, we have to explain what they're going to get for it. Somebody else talked about transparency. It's all about transparency. I've been appointed to several different committees by different governors, and every discussion we have is about transparency. People are tired of saying, just here's my tax dollars, I just want to make a difference. Just go and do good. No, they want to know what they're getting.
I think transparency is definitely an issue. I think funding is also an issue. I mean, we're limited when it comes to numbers of a district is size. We're on the low end for costs. I mean, there's only so much blood you can squeeze from the turnip. I mean, if we put it into the regular point of view for anybody that's on a fixed income, if prices keep going up and you've cut everything you possibly can, when is enough and you just break? And as some of our candidates were saying, we're almost to that point in some issues. Yeah, we're getting 85 cents out of $1. So were we just going to keep shaving it down until we're at 50 cents for getting $1 out of 50 cents? Sooner or later, it's going to start to affect the kids, be it class size, be it the best teachers, be it the quality that we need. So yes, I understand transparency, and transparency definitely comes not just from us, but also the taxpayers and the students and the parents that are also participating in this school. I mean, with the new Amendment 66, 43% of the general budget, the general area in the state would be going towards education. Last time I checked, at most of the money that people pay for taxes, the general fund is not all your money that you send in there. So if you send in $1,000 for the general fund, and let's say 30% goes to the general fund and the rest of the money goes to other places, 30% of your $1,000, $300 is going towards the general fund. Now take 43% of that. Parents and students need to start understanding too that students are responsible for their education and responsible to the taxpayers for the money that are using to pay their education. Parents are responsible to the taxpayers as well. We as a board are responsible to the taxpayers. It goes all the way up. Everybody is responsible to the taxpayers, not just a certain individual.
I have one question from the audience, and it's a question that we'll address again tomorrow evening. And it deals with the achievement gap between Anglo and our minority students in 27J. So I'd like to have everyone answer this question, and you might have, spoken to it already, but if you would do it again. What will you do as a board member to deal with the gap? And those of you who are currently on the 27J board, what have you done as a board member to deal with the achievement gap? Oh, great, I'm start with this from down the road.
The achievement gap, that's $1 million questions that people have been asking for a long time. Depending on the area, depending on the situation, depending on the socioeconomic adversities of the students that are in the gap, that's a big question that comes up. Some of it is intense instruction for the students, but we have to make sure it's a balance where we're not beating them over the head constantly with it, where they just give up because they're tired. I mean, we've seen students that are really, really great at sports, but their parents push them so far in sports that they just quit. We got to make sure we're not doing that with education as well. There has to be a good balance of, yes, we're pushing these kids hard and they are growing, but at the same time we push them so far that they have no electives to go to. So it's just constant battery of it, and they're done with school and they drop out. We have to push, but we can't push so far we push them off the cliff. It's a very, very fine balance to go from that. It has to be individual work. One size does not fit all. You have to look at every individual, see what they need to grow, and work on them individually to get those goals. It can't be a one-size-fit-all situation.
You know, El Paso, Texas right now is doing a lot of good work when it comes to the achievement gap, and I think that might be something that we might want to look at as far as modeling ourselves out. But you know, a lot of what they encourage is community involvement. There has to be a lot of and we have it right here. I mean, we have all these schools, we have a lot of students, and all students have the same opportunities as every other student does. And why can't we keep our schools open, let our students use what they can use? My understanding is you go down to the library any time of the day or week, and their computers are being used constantly by students because they don't have them in their homes. But yet we have them in the schools, but the schools are closed because it's after hours or weekends or whatever. Why not bring the parents in? Let the parents help as well with their students. I mean, El Paso has it going on from that standpoint. I mean, the bottom line is our community has to adopt this school district. And that happened with the Boys Ranch many years ago, where that community came around and they actually adopted that boys ranch, and they all got behind it, and that place thrived. And we need to do the same thing here, but we don't seem to do that. Again, it comes back down to communication. We need to have an emphasis on our core classes, and I think that was one of the goals that the district has. We need to have a challenging curriculum for all of our students. We need to have role models for the kids to be able to relate to. Now, when we have students, and again, when it gets back to our hiring practices here, when we have students that are in this district 47% Hispanic, but yet we have probably less than 10% that are minority origin teaching in classes, how do these kids get to be their role models? Where do they find their role models? We need to make sure that we're keeping it. I mean, what would be wrong with having the district look like the community with our teachers? You know, not every kid is born smart. I mean, obviously they have to go to school and learn, and then they learn at different levels. But we have to have an ability to be able to add extra help for the kids. Now, I'll tell you, my son struggles in math. My God, he can't do geometry. You know what? Neither can I. Algebra, I'm good at, but geometry, I'm not. But thank God he's got a teacher, Miss Vigil, at the charter school. And she has classes. She has time before school, and she has time after school. I don't pick my son up till 4:30 every night. He gets out at 3:15. He's in Miss Vigil's class doing math. And other kids that are in there as well. I mean, what an opportunity for my son to have to get ahead in his math. Now, he's still not doing well, but he's doing much better. If he only had me, I'm not finished yet. Qualified teachers in the subject matter. We need to have, you know, extra help for the teachers that aren't qualified in certain subject matter to get them extra help. Peer coaching is a wonderful thing. We need to set high standards, and again, the bottom line is community development.
I think that, you know, when you are providing the basics to all the students, obviously they all should learn. But more than that is that I think kids need a purpose. And I think if they don't have a purpose, why am I at school? You know, what am I doing here? Okay, so I'm going to get the high school diploma and what? So I think that that's the part that I think that probably most of us here in this room got from our parents, that intellectual capital, that they told us, sit up, say thank you, and one day I want you to go to college, and this is what's going to happen, and etc. These kids don't have that. Some of them might, some of them don't. So they need to have a purpose. We need to show them the road. This is the reason you're at school, not to get an A, not to really score the highest pickup that you can. You're in here because that's for you, for your life, for what you're gonna be. I agree with David about the role models, but I think there should be role models from the community itself. People that they are successful in business, you know. I remember even at CU that they will have Hispanic homeowners, business owner come over and told us, yeah, I'm an executive of this company, a Hispanic person. But I think that's not only for Hispanic kids, any kid, you know. But they need that example. They need to see a nurse. They need to see a fireman, and all that stuff. Because maybe not all of us wanted to go to college. You know, maybe considering the time span that we live in this planet, right? At some point, it's not necessary that at 17 or at 18 you're going to go to college and blah, blah, blah. Maybe at 18 you decide to be a fireman, and then maybe by the time you're 30, you decide that, hey, you know what, I'm going to go to college and study art or something. You know, it's a life experience. So, but I think that we need to give them that purpose, and they have to see those role models, people doing different work, not only teachers, but everybody else.
One of the things that's really important is parent involvement. I think there's a lack of parent involvement in all age groups for the students. One of the things that has been I envision of being, just like Mr. Melo said, is I would like to see local business owners be mentors. I think too often what happens is when a child loses interest in school, they just end up saying, okay, my dad does construction, I'm gonna do construction the rest of my life, without having goals or visions to be more or be the best that they can be and beyond that. And I think if we can get local business owners involved and be mentors to the students, whether it's a plumber or, you know, just giving them that knowledge of being successful in business, in all trades. I think it's important that the students know that there's more out there for them. I think too often without involvement of the parents, they don't have those goals because maybe their parents didn't have them. So they need a mentor. They need someone who can say, you can be better. You can be better than what, you know, just stopping at this one trade. Learn all that you can. And I think if we can I think it's so important that the board get the Brighton Economic Development, get the Chamber of Commerce, collaborate together and say, we need you to be involved with our students. And I think another thing that would be successful is those students who are succeeding in whatever, whether it's math or English, to be those mentors for the younger students. I think, because sometimes students shut down to where, or they've had a bad experience with a teacher, they may open up to that student who can be a mentor to them. And I think that would be so important if we can, and not only that, it's giving that student who is tutoring or mentoring that other student the ability to say, you know what, I mean, they're building relationships, and I think that's what the students miss out is that, or get lost, is because they've stopped building those relationships to help them succeed.
Well, I believe that the hardship and the greatness of the United States is our cultural blend of population. It's a great thing, it's a hard thing to handle both. Linguistic barriers are often far greater than initially perceived. And of course, that is just one obstacle. And that is compounded with other cultural customs and things we're not aware of. A good example for this area, because we have a high population of Hispanic, Mexican American ancestry, is Halloween. It's holiday that's coming up pretty quick. Now, Halloween to me means, yeah, I'm going to have a good time. Mexican people look at it a little differently. They go to the cemetery and they have some very serious thinking about their ancestors buried in that cemetery. And that's something I don't understand. You need somebody who is of Mexican American ancestry to communicate about that. And this is a very difficult thing to address because one thing that I learned in 27J, there's at least 20 languages spoken here. How do you cope with 20 languages? There's no U.S. language, period. We have to cope with that. ESL is a gigantic obstacle. My dad and his siblings have it. My dad didn't speak English until he was 14 years old. It helped that his father was an ESL teacher. And my grandmother could actually speak English by the time I was born, too, thanks to him. Those are the things that I think are the biggest thing as far as bringing our students together, is communication and linguistics and understanding the culture that they come from. That is the capsule, the biggest problem we have as far as different learning abilities.
Well, I believe the achievement gap exists among all of our kids in our district. Kids having role models in life, kids having purpose for education, kids having a drive to make sure that, kids having a drive to think, what if I can be better than my father? What if I can be better than with my education? I did a little soul searching, had a question. I'm not going to go too far off topic here, but one of the questions I ran with previous 4 years ago was pushing parental involvement. And I'm a firm believer in parental involvement in the success of kids. And I think that each parent of a student in the district, or both parents, make sure that they are in communication with the teachers. Make sure that they realize they do have a big part in their kids' education. I believe that the achievement of those kids only goes up. Possibly some kids in the district don't have parents or one-parent family. That's fine. I think our district can be somewhat able to address those needs individually. But being on the board, I'm familiar with Dr. Fiddler and working very hard over most of last year, coming up with some new initiatives and working with the community and helping eliminate some of the specific achievement gaps in the district. So I'm very happy to see that. What have I done? I've got to give myself a little self-inquiry here. I haven't done much, to be honest. But I have to say that I'm not interested now to forward to help our administration, which I
the question was, what would I do as a board member to address the achievement gap? The one thing that as a board that we should do always is hold the superintendent accountable. I'm not necessarily interested in programs. I'm interested in processes and investment in people. I have I am having the privilege to be able to work with a district in South Carolina, very low performing, not very much money spent on the kids, low socioeconomic, lots and lots of challenges. They have, and if you're interested in Googling, the initiative is called, the process is called Transform SC, is the group that has gone in. What they've done is they have gathered groups of superintendents. The district that I specifically am working with is Dorchester 2. Groups of school leaders, and they've invited the community to the table. And in the community, they've invited the likes of the CEO of both. And they've asked, when students graduate from our schools, what do they need in order for you to give them a good paying job? And both the CEO has been sitting there with us and outlining what it's going to take for a student to get a job. Not just a diploma, but a specific skill set. And so in the achievement gap, when we look at what the scores mean, what can the students actually do? You know, what are they actually doing and what are they actually not doing? And being and looking at those things with all of the stakeholders at the table. One of the main stakeholders at the table that represents the board of the district is the superintendent. Going back to my original point, holding the superintendent as well as other school leaders accountable for that which we are charged them to do.
One of my thoughts is having parents want to be accountable. I myself, my daughter taught me this last year. This is first grade. She'd come up to me with her planner, with her spelling words in it, say, "Dad, I need you to sign this after my spelling words." Well, I would go to sign the book without starting. She would immediately grab the book out of my hands because she's like, "No, we are not done." Okay, our kids can be accountable, and their kids can want to be. But as parents, we should want to be as well. Don't skip that step. Okay, we should be wanting to be part of our kids' education. And I'm proud of her for saying no. Don't just skip this step. Every night, she still makes me do it. She's not like, "Dad, sign it and walk away." Well, my other son, who's 11, "Here, Dad, I'm done." He doesn't want me to check his work. I'll go back to it about 20 minutes later. "Are you done with your homework?" "No." "But you signed my planner." "I'm good." No, we as parents have to be accountable. We just make them want to be accountable. Because if we are invested in our kids are going to invest in their education. So we have to say it.
The achievement gap is a complex problem. You've heard lots of different ideas about how to shrink the gap. I've been working at the school for 25 years, and I've come to the conclusion one size does not fit all. You have complex learning styles. You have language issues, but more importantly, cultural issues. The first school I worked in had 3,000 students, elementary school. It was 98% Hispanic. It had a 100% turnover rate every year. We don't understand some of the issues that some of these families go through. Identifying the needs of the students is identifying the needs of the kids that need our help. There are lots of kids that go through the school system that do very well with their families, with their grades. They do well. And there's a large number of kids, and probably every teacher could name probably 10 to 20% of the class, they spend 90% of their time. Tutoring helps a lot of kids. For a lot of kids, it does nothing because they don't learn that way. We don't identify the way. So somebody mentioned, I mean, several people mentioned parent involvement. Parent involvement is an uphill battle for a large number of the kids that we serve and do go to school. Because the parents feel like they're at school, it's not my problem. Now, they're your problem. And we have to turn that around. We have to help get parents involved, and it's not easy. And the schools aren't the only place that needs to happen. We need to do it as community members. We need to do it as business owners. If we don't get the family back in the education, we're not going to change it. A lot of these kids, when they go to school, they get home, their parents are only interested in when can we get out of school and go to work and help their family. The economic situation is improving, but it's not there yet. A lot of these families are living from paycheck to paycheck. School is not always their primary.
I think we need to give these men and women a big round of applause. So on behalf of the school district, once again, thank you so much. It's really difficult to speak off the top of your head quite often, and all of you have brought so many skills. I just wish we could just have all of you on the board. I mean, that would be very powerful. I think it's important to remember that, yes, people are running from a specific district, but everyone in the school district votes on every district. So you have the opportunity to vote for a person from each district, not just where you live, but from the entire district. So keep that in mind. So you see, tomorrow night we have a different set of questions. Some of the questions we've touched upon tonight quite a bit. We may have to think up some more overnight. We'll see what happens. So, any further comments, Dr. Fisher? Any benedictions or closings or?
No, I would echo John's comments. Thank you for your desire to run and serve. It's wonderful to have this weekend. It's the last time the school folks run. And then Joel's teasing me up to get coffee. So that's part of my function here tonight and tomorrow night. Thank you very much for being here tonight. See you all tomorrow night.
I want to ask a question given time, but just something for you to consider that I haven't heard anything about tonight. And I'm very concerned as a parent, being a parent of 7. And my oldest just graduated this last week from Prairie High School. I'm seeing the schools shut down the higher learner classes. The middle school is now not offering geometry. The high school is dumping everybody into physical science. They don't want them in biology. Nobody wants any, it just kind of seems to be just even it all out. Everybody get put in one. And how you expect to continue getting ACT scores and high grades from that standpoint, high achievement, when we're taking away the advanced. I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but just please keep that in mind. I'm very concerned. I'm seeing my younger learners get these things shut down.
Perhaps tomorrow night? I don't know. Would you be able to come tomorrow night and we can talk about that?
I don't know if I can see that.
Okay.
Talk about our family night tonight.
Okay, all right.
We'll see.
I just want to honor everyone's time. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all tomorrow night. And we'll be up at the Education Center.